where today we are going to be looking at 5 history hits that you should know about. Now, before I get into this list, I just want to say that this list could have been so much longer, because there's a lot of horrible things that have happened in human history. But I chose these ones because they were interesting, they were influential, and they were also kind of important for you to know about. So let's get started. Number 5. The Black Death. Now, if you've ever played the game Plague Inc., then you will all know that one of the worst plagues to infect humans was the bubonic plague, or more commonly known as the Black Death. It first appeared in Asia, but made its way over to Europe in 1346. It spread rapidly across the continent, killing an estimated 75 million people, or around half of the population. Symptoms included fever, weakness, pain, and swelling of the lymph nodes, which became known as buboes. Hence, the name bubonic plague. People who were infected with the Black Death often died within a week, and even those who survived were left permanently scarred. Obviously, this had an enormous impact on European society, and it led to a decline in population, economic uncertainty, and a lot of social unrest. There is also some theories out there that the plague actually originated from rats that lived on ships that traveled from Asia to Europe carrying the disease on fleas. But regardless of how it got there, it had an enormous impact on European society. Now, 4. The Crusades. The Crusades were a series of religious missions led by European Christians with the goal of reclaiming the Holy Land, otherwise known as Israel and Palestine, from Muslim rule. The First Crusade began in 1095 after Pope Urban II called for a holy war to take back Jerusalem from the Seljuk Turks, who were a Muslim group. Over the next 200 years, there were 8 major crusades with the goal of establishing Christian states in the Levant, which is a region in the Middle East that includes modern-day Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, and Palestine. Though it is worth mentioning that not all the crusades were directed towards the Muslims, as later crusades would actually turn on each other. When the Crusaders seized Jerusalem in 1099, they went on to establish several Crusader states, but they were constantly under threat from the Muslim powers around them. And eventually in 1291, the last Crusader stronghold fell, ending the era of the Crusades. Overall, the Crusades were a complex and multifaceted period of history that had a profound impact on the relationship between Christianity and Islam. Number 3. The French Revolution. The French Revolution was a period of radical social and political upheaval in France that lasted from 1789 to 1799. It was a time of great change and upheaval in which the old order of things was challenged and ultimately overthrown. The revolution began in 1789 with the storming of the Bastille, a royal prison that had come to symbolize the oppressive power of the monarchy. This event marked the beginning of the end for the French monarchy. Over the next 10 years, the French people overthrew the monarchy, established a republic, and then a dictatorship under Napoleon Bonaparte. The French Revolution had a profound impact on the course of world history. It was a time of great ideas and ideals such as liberty, equality, and fraternity. It was also a time of great violence and bloodshed. The revolution inspired other movements for freedom and democracy around the world. It also helped to spread the ideas of liberalism and nationalism. In many ways, the French Revolution was a watershed moment in world history. It was a time of great change and upheaval that transformed the course of human history. Number 2. World War II. World War II was a global war that lasted from 1939 to 1945. It was the deadliest conflict in human history, involving the vast majority of the world's nations, including all of the great powers. The war was fought between 2 main alliances, the Axis powers and the Allies. The Axis powers were led by Germany, Italy, and Japan, while the Allies were led by Great Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union. World War II was a truly global conflict, fought on every continent except Antarctica. The war began in 1939 with the German invasion of Poland. This invasion was the immediate trigger for the war, and it led to the rapid conquest of much of Europe by the German forces. The entry of the United Kingdom and France into the war did little to stop the German advance. It wasn't until June 1941 that Germany invaded the Soviet Union, opening up a new front in the war. This proved to be a turning point in the conflict, as the Soviets would go on to inflict heavy casualties on the German army. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, The Japanese were engaged in a series of conflicts with the British, Americans, and other Allied forces. The Japanese had been on a path of expansion for some time, and they would go on to conquer large parts of Southeast Asia and the Pacific. But their advance would eventually be stopped by the American forces in the Pacific. As the war dragged on, it became clear that the Axis powers were unable to win. In 1943, the tide of the war turned decisively in favor of the Allies. This was due to a number of factors, including the entry of the United States into the war, the Soviet victory at Stalingrad, and the Japanese defeat at Midway. By 1945, the war in Europe had ended with the surrender of Germany. The war in the Pacific, however, would drag on until August 1945, when the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This led to the surrender of Japan and the end of World War II. World War II was a devastating conflict that resulted in the deaths of millions of people. But it was also a defining moment in world history. It led to the creation of the United Nations, the start of the Cold War, the beginning of the nuclear age, and many other important developments. No. 1. The Spanish Conquista. The Spanish Conquista refers to the period of time between 1492 and 1565, during which the Spanish conquered and Christianized the Iberian Peninsula. This period began with the capture of Granada, the last Muslim stronghold in Spain, and ended with the fall of the Emirate of Granada. The Conquista was a significant event in world history, as it marked the end of Muslim rule in Spain and the beginning of Spain's dominance in the Mediterranean. The Conquista was the result of centuries of conflict between the Christian kingdoms of Spain and the Muslim Almohads and Nasr. The Christian kings of Spain were determined to recapture the Iberian Peninsula from Muslim rule, and they were finally successful in doing so in 1492. Once the Muslims were driven out of Spain, the Spanish began to conquer and Christianize the peninsula. This was a slow process that took place over the next several decades. The Spanish Inquisition was established in 1478 to ensure that the Muslims and Jews converted to Christianity or left Spain. During the Conquista, the Spanish also began to explore and conquer the Americas. This would lead to the establishment of vast Spanish colonial empires in the New World. The Conquista was a pivotal moment in world history. It marked the end of Muslim rule in Spain and the beginning of Spain's dominance in the Mediterranean. It also led to the beginning of the Spanish colonial empire in the Americas.